Welcome to Warfighter Advanced, Coming Home at Last, a podcast by and for veterans. Warfighter Advance is an organization whose mission is the successful reintegration of every warfighter. Hi, I'm Michael Arndt, a Vietnam combat veteran and a member of the Board of Directors of Warfighter Advance. Welcome again to another episode of the Warfighter Advance podcast, Coming Home at Last. Joining me today is Wes Holt. Wes is a Marine veteran and a first responder.
Yes, sir.
And more importantly, he's a mentor at Warfighter Advance.
Maybe a bad example. I'm not sure about a mentor.
First of all, talk to me about your background, both your military background and then your civilian background, especially in relation to suicide prevention.
So early on, I was a poor kid from Arkansas. We didn't have a lot of options per se. I was not particularly fond of school, but at the same time, I had this grand idea that I was going to be a philosophy major. The only school teacher I liked, he said, he's like, what are you going to do? You need to pull your head out of your ass and decide what you're going to do. I was like, I've got this under control. I said, I'm going to be a philosophy major. And he says, that's awesome. And he said, you 4 years, 6 years? I'm like, I don't know, probably, at least 6 years, get a master's in philosophy. He's like, cool. He's like, where are you going to work after that? I was like, wherever they, do philosophy stuff at. He's like, those are teachers. I was like, no, fuck that. I'm going to the Marine Corps. So... But, was what I considered a lifer. I mean, it's all I really wanted to do after that. And joined the Marine Corps in 94. I was part of a security forces team. And about a year and a half, 2 years in, got busted up pretty good, broke some things, and became a damaged instrument. And so they didn't have a whole lot of use for me after that. And I was pretty disgruntled, so I got med-sept out of the Marine Corps. Of course, I'd developed a pretty heavy drinking habit by then, and all the things. And so I figured a great segue is like, well, I can't be a Marine, I'll just be a cop. So you can imagine how that went, because I went to this little small county in Arkansas, and they said, "Oh, you were in the Marine Corps?" I said, "Yeah." They said, "Here's a badge, gun, and a car. This is go down here to the south end of this county that's very impoverished and very extreme high crime, and just act like you're still in the Marine Corps." I was like, "Are you sure that's a good idea?" They're like, "You're going to do great." I was like, "Okay." So, we did that, and that's, before we knew what the Constitution was or any of those other things. And so I found out real quickly that we weren't, I'd kind of lost my mission and purpose. I'd lost my mission and purpose with the military to begin with. I wanted to find that because I literally told the judge that swore me in, he hands me, my badge and my stuff, and I signed the thing. I said, "You forgot something." He says, "What?" I swear to y'all, if the judge was still alive, he'd tell you that. I said, "You forgot to give me my cape, because I'm going to save this place." And he laughed. He's like, "Good luck, son." And so, but what we saw real quickly is, we were supposed to protect and serve. I didn't have my Marine Corps mission anymore, and then all we were doing was really just arresting people. We weren't, I didn't feel like we were doing much protecting and or serving at all. Of course, my injuries from the Marine Corps would catch up to me from time to time. I'd have to have surgeries. I had a lot of bouts of, not to say the word anxiety, it would be more fear, anger. Was very disgruntled quite a bit. Found myself trying to get away from living by the gun numerous times. Started businesses, do different things. And I would just always come back in. I would get an offer for private contracting, or I would get an offer for fugitive recovery, or just anything. And it was just always, to me, it was never about, it never was back to protecting and serving. And I just always had this hole. A handful of years ago now, about almost 4 years ago now, I stumbled across this lady. I was in a VFW. I was drinking and playing poker. And this lady comes up to me because she knew how I was still in and out of law enforcement and this and that. And she knew I did suicide interventions and crisis interventions and things. We have some programs for that. And she introduced me into a group called We Are the 22, which is Arkansas only. And it's a veteran suicide intervention program. And I thought, yeah, it's, it's all the rest of them. They're just going to be bumping their gums and not doing anything. And what I found was an entity that actually was running a hotline and literally sending out veterans in real time, 24/7, 2 o'clock in the morning on Christmas. They didn't care. They're putting veteran in front of veteran and making sure they see the daylight. And I said, oh my gosh, that's a needed thing, and that's something I can get behind because. So I do crisis intervention in law enforcement. I'm a crisis intervention instructor. We teach what's called the Memphis model, which is kind of the gold standard in that. If you remember from your military days, ASSIST, the Applied Suicide Intervention Skills Training, I'm a national instructor for that, so we teach all these things. This was a way for me to put this on a broader spectrum of teaching to a whole bunch of folks that actually wanted to make a difference. And put those into directly in front of veterans, teach them these critical de-escalation skills. And just like Doc V says, we've got this incredible model where we're not shipping people to psych wards and telling them they need to get on their medicine and telling them they need to do all this stuff. We're literally saying that you need to speak to someone, and we're right here, right now. Just like Sean says on the course, we're right here, right now. And we do that, and we have this incredible amount of success. We've been doing this since 2017 as a unit. We just crossed over 600 physical suicide interventions, and we only know of 2 veterans that have completed past our intervention. And it's an unheard of model that has an unheard of success rate because it's just advanced peer support, and it's a continuity of care, which just means we just keep fucking talking to them. Yeah. We just keep saying, hey, we know where you've been. We get it. Talk to us. And we don't try to give them advice. We just listen because folks just want to be heard and seen. So that's what we make sure they are, heard and seen, and let them process through their things. So flash forward, my wife is a mentor here. She works in the community, and our paths overlapped. That's how we met. She told me about the program. Of course, she didn't, how we do. She just told me, she's like, there's this program up in Maryland. You need to go. And some of our other friends, they're members of my organization. She says, Shane and Marisol, they went up there. It's like, really? I was like, yeah, but they probably need it more than me. And that's what I just kept saying, no, those spots sound pretty coveted to me. This sounds like something pretty special. I don't need that. I'm going to keep out here plugging away in the community. I'm going to keep doing my thing. She finally convinced me. I was like, oh my gosh, I guess I'll sign up. And
so what happened when you got here?
Oh my gosh, floods of emotion for the first thing, and then of course the education. I spent half my time in the first 2 days feeling validated and pissed off, and validated and elated and pissed off, and just this roller coaster of emotion. But I grew more in that week than I have in 20 years.
Wow.
And so, just incredible. I can't say enough. And that's the only thing when I'm trying to get people to come to this program. That's really about all I say. I don't know how to explain this program to you. Of course, we do that on purpose. But I say, I'm just going to tell you that when I went, I grew more in a week than I did in 20 years.
That's amazing.
And this is the best gift you'll ever give yourself. So.
Well, thank you for spreading the word. So you came back to Warfighter Advance, and you're acting as a mentor now, along with your wife. You're both working in the program. Talk to me about what that experience is like.
Humbling, I think, would be a good word. Humbling and honoring, I think, would probably be the best things to say. I don't look at what we do as mentoring. I look at what we do as just being a chauffeur. We want to make sure they get to where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there, and have what they need when they get there. We want to be walking right beside them, not in front of them. Sometimes maybe even a step behind them with just our hands out, saying you can do this a little better. And you can push yourself a little farther and just keep going. So I don't even see it as much as a mentor as I do as more of a chauffeur or a trail guide maybe. And just to be 1,000,000% honest, it's selfish because I grow a little more every time I come. And it just helps me just a little bit more to see. We deal with so much of this stuff so often. So I live in the crisis and suicide world. That's what I do for a living. I'm still in law enforcement. I'm still a law enforcement instructor. I still pull patrol shifts. So for the majority of my adult life, all I've ever dealt with is the worst, and I don't get to see good outcomes very often. And so to come here and watch a class and watch that light come back in their eyes and watch the growth, it's good.
What would you say to someone who may be struggling, a vet or even a first responder who's watching or listening to this podcast? What would you say to them about Warfighter?
I could say millions of things about Warfighter. I could say tons of motivating things about why you should come and why you should be here, and the gifts to yourself and honoring all the things. I don't know what else to say other than to say this is truly different. I have been to all the programs. I've been in and out of the VA and the private healthcare system. I've been on all the medicines. I still practice all of the de-escalation techniques on myself, because one of the things I'll tell you is that, and this is hard for me to say sometimes, I do a lot of public speaking. I do a lot of teaching. I'm in front of a lot of people a lot of times. I have to have Zoom meetings with the VA and mental health folks. About a month and a half ago, I was on a Zoom meeting. There were 17 people on that Zoom call. 16 of them had letters and a bunch of them behind their name, and this old dumb jarhead from Arkansas. And what I'll tell you is that it looks like I have it all together, and it looks like I've got this great plan, and it looks like I'm just, kicking life in the ass. And regularly I have those intrusive thoughts of I'm not good enough, I'm not doing well enough, fuck it, I'll just pull this truck into oncoming traffic. And this program, along with a few other things, but primarily this program, and being able to see that there is a path forward and that I don't struggle alone in those thoughts. And yeah, I may be the big tough guy and I'm out here trying to save the world, but so are a lot of other people, and it's hard for them to ask for help as well. And so this is a place for us to come together and say it's okay not to be okay.
Well, thank you for sharing your story with us, and especially thank you for all the wonderful work you're doing assisting others. It's been a
Proud to
pleasure
serve.
talking to you.
Thank you, sir.
This has been another episode of the Warfighter Advance podcast, Coming Home at Last. Joining me is Simone Holt. Welcome, Simone.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Simone, you are not a veteran, but found Warfighter anyway and have been involved with it for a number of evolutions. So tell me about your civilian job, which led you to Warfighter Advance.
All right. So I work with soldiers in the National Guard in Arkansas. My official title is Soldier and Family Readiness, and we provide non-med case management and resources to veterans, soldiers, and their families.
And how did you hear about Warfighter Advance?
A very dear friend of mine, Marisol Cordova, who is an alumni of Warfighter, had worked with me in the community. We'd met at a couple of resource meetings, and she suggested that I come here as an observer, as a civilian observer, in order to provide the information to my veterans and soldiers. And so she reached out to Dr. Veaton, and she was like, yes. And so they allowed me to come as an observer.
What was that experience like, coming to your first Evo?
Well, so I was an attendee of Evo 28. I had come in as an observer, and by day two, halfway through day two, I was neck deep in, I just want to be part of this. It's amazing. And
What particularly attracted you or reached out to you from the experience?
the common sense approach to autonomy and dignity, and that you are in charge of your journey, and giving that mission back along with the community that Warfighter provides. It's such a healing experience on so many levels.
After you attended your Evo, you came back a number of times, and you're back now again as a mentor. Tell me about that experience.
Well, initially I was very anxious with it, but stepping into that role as a mentor has been a very humbling learning experience for me, but also very, very gratifying in that I get to watch this incredible transformation in 7 days happen with our veterans. Sometimes they come in and they're low in spirits or morale, and by day 3 they're all in. There's this amazing teamwork, and the light starts to come back that mission, that desire to have a purpose. And it's just such a growth and such a wonderful experience to witness.
Describe what the work of a mentor is like and what a mentor does.
Being present, giving a listening ear, serving that attendee, being able to give just whatever it is they need, whether it's just to hear or provide empathy, and just kind of make sure that they're okay. Because a lot of times we have that servant's heart veteran, because you guys have volunteered and shared so much of your lives, and so reciprocity in that, of course, has been just incredible. But giving that care back is such a privilege in my mind.
Can you describe maybe a particular incident or an event that happened while you're either a participant or as a mentor?
So I'm going to share a story from my first Evo. We had a Navy veteran who had some major life changes happen within the year prior to her attending here, and so she was my co-attendee, and she had a fear of heights. And I climbed partially the way up the wall, did not make it. And then our team was like, let's go. Of course, everyone was supportive. And she not only climbed the entirety of the wall, she was the first and only one of two that accomplished that. And the look of just pure euphoria and just pride in her accomplishment was so amazing. Not just, of course, watching and witnessing, but that look, that light just on. And it was so extraordinary from Sunday to that day, to see that transformation and the confidence in her stride and the continuing conversation since then. She's taken that and moved with it.
What would you say to someone who may be watching or listening to this podcast about Warfighter Advance? Maybe someone who is transitioning out of the military or retiring, or even active service members?
I would say come with an open mind. Come with the understanding that you're here to learn and heal. The profound utilization of what we learn here is immediately applicable in everyday life, and that is such an extraordinary thing, because so often in other types of programming or even just interactions, that's not available. And so I want to call common sense, utilizable approach in, you can wake up, you can go after lunch and begin with this ability to just implicate this into your everyday life, and that's powerful.
Well, thank you for talking to us today, Simone, and thank you for your service to Warfighter Advance.
Thank you very much. It's a privilege to be here.
This has been another episode of the Warfighter Advance podcast, Coming Home at Last. Thank you for joining us for the Warfighter Advance Coming Home at Last podcast. Warfighter Advance envisions a world where warfighters are fully restored through a non-medical process. To achieve that vision, Warfighter Advance sponsors 6 7-day training sessions each year to which veterans and active duty service members can apply, and for no cost to the warfighter. If you or those you know are struggling with issues related to reintegration, please contact us through our website. We are dedicated to lead the way so that every warfighter has the information, tools, and support they need to successfully reintegrate. Until next time, this is Michael Arndt on behalf of Warfighter Advance.